Hello, this is Phil. It's June 2nd, 2022, and this video is going to be about how Pepsi and Diet Pepsi helped kill my wife. If you want the short form of this video, I'll give it to you right now. Information that I've learned since my wife died is that the aspartame in Diet Pepsi causes a massive retention of water in the tissues of a human being. Aspartame also, in a 2019 study of healthy women, caused a 30% higher rate of blood clots. So that's the short form of that. Splenda sucralose, which is the same thing. Sucralose is the chemical name, Splenda is the brand name. Splenda sucralose will kill your stomach bacteria. It will make you highly addicted to it, and it will create a stomach situation where you will not be able to ingest water because it is so uncomfortable. And you may also get to the point where you're puking up white foam. That's the short form right there. And if you want to leave the video now, you can leave it. But if you want to hear how I know this, I'm about to tell you the story of how my wife suffered like hell for 10 years. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to cry. So let's get on to how my wife Wanda lived a life with Pepsi in it every day of her life practically, and how Pepsi and Diet Pepsi helped kill her. So my wife was born into a family with a father who was a decent, hard-working man, but unfortunately he was an alcoholic from the time he was a child. And when he drank, he was a monster of a human being. He would beat my wife's mother, attack my wife's sister, and potentially attack my wife when he was drunk. That's what she grew up with. Her mother left her father for a while, and they lived in a very poor house, and her sister worked so hard to send them money so they would have food to eat. Her sister's a hero. Anyway, so my wife grew up dirt poor at certain times in her life. And she also dealt with the abuse of her father. As a teenager, she became a stunningly beautiful young woman. But unfortunately, her father's alcoholic friends and a man who married her named Larry, her first husband, treated her like shit. Wanda made it through that. But Wanda, when she was a child, her mother, to keep her happy, would give her soda, which Wanda told me was Pepsi, regular Pepsi. And it wasn't her mom being evil. Her mom was just trying to keep her comfortable and happy. So don't think I'm saying anything like that. Anyway, so Pepsi was a regular part of her diet, regular Pepsi. And it may have been a causative factor for her developing diabetes, which was untreated for many years. Wanda got fungus in her toenails, which is a common problem with people who have diabetes who have bad circulation. And all of her toenails had to be cut off. It was done by a doctor who should be shot right in his face for the poor job he did. But Wanda got through that. Wanda was a hard-working woman, an honest and decent person. Her first husband married her and left her to go fishing for 3 days as soon as they got married. There was no honeymoon. Later on, he had his own food addiction. Well, Wanda had her food addiction too. Food was one of the few places that Wanda could go to hide from the shithole world we live in. So, she went there. She had her husband that treated her like shit. But she was a great cook. Her mother said she didn't think that Wanda would ever be able to cook. I apologize, I have a little bit of red wine here, Red Sweet Cabot brand wine. And I was hoping I could drink a little bit of that and maybe get through this without busting out, but I'm going to bust out. So just deal with it. Anyway. Wanda went to work at a pants factory in the town she lived in. She worked there for, I guess, for about a year. She was a hard worker. Then she went to work for the federal government. She worked there for 33 years. And every damn year she got commendations for how hard she worked. Wanda kept drinking the Pepsis. And of course, when Diet Pepsi came out, of course, Wanda wanted to be healthy. So that Diet Pepsi and Diet Coke and all these diet drinks sold themselves with aspartame as being a healthy beverage. So of course she went from drinking Pepsis with high fructose corn syrup in them, which they used to be made with sugar. But then of course high fructose corn syrup is cheap. And who gives a damn about the American people? It's cheap. It's sweet. Who cares? We make more money. So they went to high fructose corn syrup. Well, aspartame came out and they said the same thing. Who gives a damn about the American people? It's sweet, it's cheap. Oh, and by the way, it's very addictive. So of course they went to aspartame. And unfortunately, if you're a diabetic, you're looking for ways to maintain the sweet in your beverages that don't include sugar because it blows your blood sugar through the roof. And aspartame is a substitute for that. So of course I got this whole damn depth trials in my head. So of course Wanda kept drinking the Diet Pepsi, and Wanda kept working at this government job, and she moved through several locations with several bosses, and she wound up working at a hospital as a bookkeeper, and she wound up with an unbelievably abusive female boss, which I never knew about until after she got sick. This boss knew that Wanda was a dedicated worker. She knew that she had decades of experience in the government. She knew that Wanda knew what she was doing. And she knew that Wanda had no interest in kissing her ass to get ahead in the government. She just wanted to do her job and come home to me. And to feel good about doing her job. Because one thing I will say, for all this hate that's being spread around at women, they are some of the hardest damn workers on the planet. They are so genuinely decent, hard-working people, the ones that I know, that it's such an insult to women to even equate that a man can do a lot of what they do, because really we can't. So anyway, Wanda kept drinking the Diet Pepsis and working for the horrendous boss. I found out that she was taking Prozac one day, this was a Saturday morning. And she left the bottle on the kitchen table. I said, honey, why are you taking this? She says, well, a couple months ago I wanted to kill myself. And I couldn't believe it. I said, what the hell? Why didn't you come to me? She said, I don't know why, I just wanted to tough it out. But she went to her primary care physician at the HMO she had. And God bless that primary care physician. They put her over to a mental health care professional and got her a prescription for Prozac. And it helped her get through the deep depression she was in at that time. She was taking that when she had her stroke. I'll never forget the day she had the stroke. I got up, I came in the kitchen, and Wanda's yelling for me. She says, Phil, I can't get out of bed. And I got her legs turned to the side, and I got her legs over the side of the bed, and I pulled her up. And we went, right away we went to the HMO, and the doctor, the primary care physician said, I don't think you, I said to her, I said, you think she has a stroke? I said, you think she's had a stroke? And she says, no, I think she's got a sinus infection. And we said, I said, oh, you sure? She says, okay. She says, yeah. I said, okay. Well, we went home, and Wanda just didn't get better. In the middle of the week, we went to a ear, nose, and throat specialist. Before we ever got in the room, the guy looked at her in the face as we're walking up to the door to the examining room and says, you don't have no stroke, you have a sinus infection. And we went in the room, and he said that my wife had a sinus infection and gave her a prescription. We went home, and 3 days later we went back to the primary care physician. She says, I don't know what this is. We need to do an MRI. Or a CAT scan. I can't remember which one it was. Anyway, she had a CAT scan. And as we're waiting for that, we're in the emergency room, and the people are murmuring in the emergency room saying things like, who's going to take responsibility for this? I mean, what's going on here? So we went in and had the test, and we drove home. And as we drove home, I get home, and there's a phone message on the phone. It's from the Russian guy who did the CAT scan. He says, you need to come back to the hospital. Your wife has had a massive stroke. So I went back to the hospital, and it was too late to do anything. So Wanda and I, we got all the heart medicines and all the stroke medicines and the statins and all that. We were taking it, and she had the terrible vertigo. It felt the feeling of being on the end of a string. That was her number one symptom. And it took her about, I'm going to say 6 months to get over that. It would come and go. But she was a trooper, man, and she got through it, and I helped her. I took 2 months off from my job, or I guess maybe a month and a half off from my job as soon as we got this diagnosis, because I had to stay home with her. And within a month and a half, she started getting well enough to get up and walk around the house, and we had started working with the government with her retiring, because she had to retire right away. She was still drinking Pepsis. She was drinking the Diet Pepsis. And she always had a problem with water weight gain, with her legs would swell and they wouldn't swell. Her legs would swell and they wouldn't swell. But it wouldn't be bad. Okay? So we went through this for about 2 years, and I was concerned because she wasn't getting any better. And I was like, something's got to happen, man. And I was thinking, maybe this aspartame's a bad deal here. Maybe we should go to Splenda. And I talked to her, and she said, sure, I'll try anything. So we went to Splenda. And at the time, there was this white label Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, that had Splenda in it. It's called, the chemical name is sucralose. So we started on that. And we went to everything away from anything that had aspartame in it. I forget what the powdered sugar is that has aspartame in it. NutraSweet? Anyway, we got away from everything aspartame, went to Splenda. Well, Wanda had her stroke in 2015. 2014 went to Splenda. 2014, 2015. 2017, Wanda starts having a problem with dehydration. She doesn't want to drink water. And she's only drinking Diet Pepsis, the white label Diet Pepsis. And she's only drinking just enough to keep her thirst happy. And she's just not ingesting enough water. She's drying out from the inside. And I take her to the HMO's urgent care in 2017 about 4 times to get a bag of saline pumped into her arm. And she went in the hospital once during that time, and that was the first time the doctor came to me with a do not resuscitate order, and I said, hell no. Hell no. She's doing great. Hell no. So she came out the hospital, and in August of 2017, she went back in the hospital. She had a big problem with dehydration, and also she had started coughing up this white foam. And this white foam was something that was really concerning to Wanda and me because we were concerned it was cancer. Cancer of the stomach. We did not know it was caused by Splenda sucralose. Nobody knew. The doctors didn't know. Nobody knew. So she went into hospital, and she was going to be scheduled for some stomach scans. They were just trying to keep her comfortable, get her rehydrated. They gave her a drug called Reglan in her IV. She's still drinking Diet Pepsi. She's still getting Splenda in her food at the hospital. She had a massive reaction to the drug Reglan, which blew her brain to pieces. And I mean, the nurse put the Reglan in her IV, and 10 minutes later, Wanda thought she was working back at the hospital 5 years before. She wanted to get out the bed and go downstairs to where the room was where she was working at in the bookkeeping room. I went out to the hallway. I asked the nurse, I said, what the hell did you give her? She says, I just gave her Reglan. The nurse was terrified. And I don't blame her. So I took her home from the hospital. She was hallucinating. She was seeing, it was a summer day, and she was seeing the wind blowing on the grass, and she said, look at the lizards running across the top of the grass. Well, that's the shine of the sunlight running across the top of the grass. Took her home. I was hoping that she would get better. She did get better about 20 hours after they put the Reglan in. She came back to her senses, and that's why they released her. But when we got in the car, she was hallucinating a little bit. Took her home. She had a reaction at the house like she was having a stroke again, so I took her back to the hospital. She stayed there 3 days. And her HMO sent her out with a diagnosis that she was bipolar. Never been bipolar in her life. They were covering up for the Reglan reaction, I guess. I mean, that's an accusation, so who the hell knows. But anyway, Wanda came home. Unfortunately, in the time she was in the hospital, they had changed her blood pressure medicine and put isosorbide mononitrate in her system, which is contraindicated with people who have glaucoma. And in 3 weeks, Wanda's cataracts